And before we continue, I'm going to show you something that is super common and convenient in object-oriented programming, okay? And this is basically adding getter and setter methods to modify a private attribute. So depending on the attributes you have here, so you know that whatever is private, you can't modify it and you can't get access to it outside of the class. So from the implementation file of the class, no problem, you can get access to them, but outside of the class, let's say for example in the main here, you can't get access to them. So of course, some of the private attributes you don't want to make them available from the outside. For example, in the LED blinker, last time blinked. You don't want someone from the outside to be able to modify this, okay? This is an internal attribute you are going to use only for internal purpose. But for example, the blink delay. So we already have a way to modify the blink delay when we create the object. So when we create the object, we call the constructor and we can specify if we want to a blink delay. But what if we want to modify the blink delay after we have created the object? Well, for now, we don't have any way to do this. So I'm simply going to add two new functions here, actually one setter and one getter, so we can get the blink delay from the outside of the class, and we can also set the blink delay from the outside of the class. So first, the getter will be unsigned long get blink delay. So you just, this is a pretty standard convention, you just use get and then the name of the attribute. Okay, that's the prototype of the function. So of course you need to return the type that is the exact same type as the attribute you want to return. And then if you want to modify it, then you are going to use void set blink delay. And here you are going to put unsigned long blink delay as a parameter. So void because you don't return anything, you are going to change the blink delay and you provide, so unsigned long again, the same as the attribute you want to modify. And now you can implement those inside the LED blinker.cpp. Some people, and that's really, there is no really right or wrong answer, okay? Some people will just, some developers will just implement the getter and the setter here inside the .h file because there is not really much to it, okay? It doesn't add a lot of value to the implementation, so it's just one line. So some developer will just implement them in the header file, which is an option you can choose. But here, just for this example, I'm going to put them still anyway in the CPP file. So let's remove the indentation. Let's add this here and here and remove the semicolon. Okay, like this. And now the implementation, well, will be the same for any getter and any setter, basically. You may add a few rules, okay, for example, check the parameter if it's not too long or too short, or, well, any rule you want. So for the getter, we simply do return blink delay. Okay, we return the value that is inside this private attribute. That's the only thing there is to it. So now from the outside, you have the LED blinker. You can do LED blinker dot get blink delay. And for the set blink delay, well, you can do this blink delay is equal to blink delay. Okay, very similar as what we did here in the constructor. And as an additional step that I'm not going to do here, but you may also want to validate the blink delay, okay? So this is an unsigned long, which means that you can't anyway give negative value. So that's already a good point. But maybe you can decide that the blink delay should be at least, let's say 50 milliseconds and maximum 10,000 milliseconds, okay? So in that case, you can add an if to validate this data here, and also actually to validate the data when you set it from the constructor. Okay, now if I compile the code, let's see if that simply compiles. Okay, and now you have two additional methods here. So the getter and setter will always be public, okay, because you want them to be accessible from the outside. And now I'm not going to use this in the code, but for example, what you could do is you could make the LED blinker update like this, and then use, for example, the push button. So whenever you press on the push button, you increase or you decrease the blink delay by X amount of milliseconds. And then you are going to be able to call the set blink delay. All right, so that's it for the getters and the setters for a class. Okay, and you can do this for any attribute you want to modify.